Hello out there, YouTubers, and welcome to another day with PE Slick Podcast. It's your host, Ranger Matt. Today, I got a special guest coming on today. He is an entrepreneur, a book author, and he really helps with motivating people in a big way. And I'm glad to have him come aboard today. His name, he has a book too. It's just Be Patient, Present, and Joyful. I can't wait to hear about it, and I'm sure you guys will too, those who's watching now and those who may be watching later. And let me get him aboard right now. This is Mr. Ryan Stanley. Oh, 1 second. Yes. Okay, back to normals. Let me get Ryan.
We made it.
Yeah, hey Ryan.
What's going on? How are we doing today?
Hey man, everything's okay, man. I'm good. How you doing today?
Yeah, everything is okay. Getting better by the minute, my friend. Thank you for asking. Been looking forward to our time together all day long.
No problem, man. Hey, look, man. Like I tell all my guests, especially those from Baltimore, like me, whenever I hear about talent, I gotta have you come on my show, man.
That's it. We got to grab it while it's hot.
Oh man, I could tell you know Dominique Brightman. That's something he would say.
I sure do. Dom's a good man.
Yeah. So Ryan, well, I got to ask you, like I've asked all my guests, how are you and your family doing during this pandemic?
You know what? We're doing well. It's been an opportunity for growth, I think, in a couple different ways. I think it's been an opportunity for more quality time, right? But what I've come to find in my time over the past 7 or 8 months, my honest belief is that this whole scenario, from everything that's gone on, has really made people more of what they already were, and that's my opinion. It's a lot like money, right? If you were already in a place of fear, you're probably a lot more fearful. If you're already a place of anger, you're probably a lot more angry. If you're whatever it is that you were before, I myself happen to be like a driven entrepreneur. So I, dove in and became more of a driven entrepreneur. I was able to spend more time focused on things that I love, passionate about life, passionate about serving others. And so it's really just increased my ability to be more of who I already am.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm glad that you've been able to take some time to I get, as people would call it, recharge and regrowth yourself during this pandemic.
Yeah, it was even more than recharging. It was like a bonus. I think I charged more than I was charged before the pandemic. It was actually, we can get into this a little bit deeper if you want, but I'm a big fan of the concept that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I think some people might even say, like, what do you mean? Like, how is that even, how does a pandemic happen for you? And the cool thing is, by asking that question, you get to ask that question and you get to say, well, I don't know. How did this happen for me? Instead of spending your time and your energy focusing on how this happened to me, how did this happen to me, and what's bad is now, you can spend your time and your energy and your thoughts on thinking, okay, how did this happen for me? What are any lessons? What are any opportunities? How can I turn this into something that can make my life more of what I want it to be? So
Right.
I honestly believe that 2020 has happened for me in so many different ways. I have become closer with my family. I've had more time at home. I've had an opportunity to be on more podcasts like this one and share my message with the world. And so really, I don't want to sound strange to anybody out there or belittling anybody's negative experience, but it's been a pretty good year for me.
Well, absolutely. And listen, man, never be afraid to chant how you feeling, man. I mean, I know people always have, so about what they feel or say, but and especially in this time in the world with the pandemic and the election and
Yeah,
and even when we had the protests going on too. It's like this is a time where we got to stand and come
totally.
together and also speak our mind as well. So that it's really I always think it's important for people to receive the message all the way around. So.
Absolutely. And once you start caring what someone else thinks, you are belittling the song of your soul that is inside.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, I mean, once you stop behaving as you would because of fear of what someone else will think of you, as long as you're not harming anybody or hurting anybody, if you're worried about what someone else somewhere else thinks, really, it's none of your business what someone else somewhere else thinks, because it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them.
Right. Absolutely. So Ryan, before we get into your work, I wanted to ask you, where are you from?
I am from New Jersey. I live about 45, 50 minutes west of New York City.
Okay. So does that
Yeah.
mean you're a Giants or Jets fan when it comes to football?
You know what? Yes and no. So technically, I wasn't raised as a sports guy, really. My dad was not into any sports at all. So I didn't really start getting into I like football a lot. In fact, it's one of the only sports that I do pay attention to. And this year, not so much. But for a long, not so exciting story, I'm actually a Minnesota Vikings fan. And, I'm also a Giants fan. I root for the Giants unless they're playing the Vikings type of thing. Like for as far as a home team goes, like I go to Giants games, I'll root for them. So them over the Jets, though, this year, what's the difference, right?
That's right, man. Hey, touchdowns. There you go.
Exactly. Gets it done. One or two, right? How are you? Are you a Ravens guy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Well, I'll put it like this: I'm not somebody I watch football, but I'm not somebody that knows like all the team players' names and
Yeah, me
like
too. Same way.
I watched maybe during the first. There we go.
Right.
I watched during like maybe the first quarter, and then I come back to what maybe the end to find out who wins. Because I mean, it's not like I can't watch the game, but sometimes like when you have games where a quarter comes and nothing happens, they just
Yeah.
missing or getting tapped all the time. That kind of bores me. So that's why after
Yeah.
a while I was like, okay, first quarter I'm gonna watch, then I'll come back to what the end and see what happens. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm.
It's like, what's the best use of your time, right? What I like to do is I turn on the TV when the game starts and I push pause and I let it pause for an hour because that's as long as it'll go. And then once the hour is up, I'll sit down and I'll watch. This way I can fast forward through the commercials. I can fast forward through the kind of the slower times. And that usually takes me to about halftime. And then I pass forward, like I basically I can fast forward through halftime and then I'm typically caught up and I push pause again. So it's better using my football viewing.
Yeah. What kind of music do you like, Ryan?
That's a great question, man. I love a lot of music. I'm a super huge fan of music in general. In fact, I used to manage a bunch of bands. When I started off my coaching practice, I was specifically focusing on musicians in the music industry. I like everything from classical and jazz. I grew up kind of on classic rock. So on the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and those types of things. Right now, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Phish, spelled Phish. They're kind of I don't know, you kind of have to know them to know them, but once you do, you love them type of a thing. So they're my favorite band. I've seen them in concert over 100 times. So I like live. I like improvisational. I like something that's going to make my. I'm not so into like repetitive stuff. I don't really follow pop music so much. I don't like country. I don't like death metal. I like some heavier energy stuff like on that space, but not so much into rap or R&B. But I can appreciate anything that makes my mind wander a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right. And you're right. With music, same thing like you. I grew up like in jazz and classical. Actually, the Disney movie they did called Fantasia, where it was just straight classical. Yeah. That's what drew me to classical was that movie. So all that stays with me. And I guess for me with music, and I wrote that in my upcoming book that I'm working on, is that's like a tool that energizes my day because I'm a delivery driver and I burn and mix my own CDs with my favorite songs and stuff. And that's an example of what can energize your day, right? Even if you're having a long day or like me, sometimes stuck in traffic because stupid drivers and all that, you gotta have something to make the day go by.
It can totally shift your energy. It's a really powerful tool, especially when if you're not in a great mood, if you're having a tough day, kick in some of your favorite songs intentionally. Put the headphones on. Speaking of classical, man, it's so funny. I had a conversation with like a buddy of mine like a week or two ago, and I was like, I know it's going to sound weird, man, but if you ever put like, you get in the zone, you put on the headphones and listen to Vivaldi's Four Seasons, like there's some intense stuff there at different points. And he was like, what are you talking about?
Man, he doesn't know. He may not know about that like me and you do, the classical worldness. So
yeah, exactly. You just got to kind of learn to listen, right? I mean, listen to learn. And that's the other thing. Like, I can certainly say there's a lot of music that I don't know, and I'm open to listening to. And sometimes you need to listen to something a couple different times. Even my favorite artists, like the first time I hear one of their songs, I'm not necessarily going to love it, but until the third time I hear it, then I'm like, okay, now I know what I love more about this, as your brain starts to kind of absorb it.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of music. In fact, I typically have to have it playing almost all the time. Like if I'm doing any type of work, unless I'm writing something, then I can have some type of music, but nothing with words. But other than that, I always have to have some music playing somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. That's how I am too. You know,
Yeah, but
I'm about to be like
asking.
Dominique soon. Whenever me and him hang out and we go to Barnes and Nobles or somewhere, he always have his headphones with him out of nowhere. And I was like, dude, I'm about to be just like you now. When I'm looking at movies and books, I'm just gonna be putting some music on as it flows.
And I will tell you that listen, I don't listen to classical music all the time. I do probably a couple times a week though with my kids if they're doing homework, especially now that we've been homeschooling because of COVID and everything.
Right.
But if I'm going to read a book, like I will listen to some classical music while I'm reading because I think it kind of helps my brain absorb the information a little bit more, and it's not so distracting that you can't focus on the words. So I will sit outside in my hammock and put some classical music on my headphones and read through a book, and it certainly helps that as well.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you that too. Are you familiar with Barnes and Nobles?
Absolutely, I did a book signing there last year.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I saw a picture that you had where you were signing a book and there was a pretty young girl talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was asking me questions just about patience and presence and joy.
So Ryan, when did you get to a point when you well, let me ask you this first. What kind of hobbies did you have growing up exactly?
That's a great question. I don't know if I had particular hobbies. I was always the type of, I guess, and I'm thinking out loud, hobbies, I just like to hang out with people. I was always a social guy. I like spending time with people. I like making people laugh. I like making people feel good about life. I didn't have any particular hobbies though that are coming to mind. I guess it depended on different stages of life. As I got a little bit older, after my teens into my 20s, my hobbies have become building businesses. I love creating businesses. I'm a little bit of what I call an ADD entrepreneur. But other than that, no particular hobbies are coming to mind.
Okay. So when did you get to a point where you knew you wanted to be like a motivational helper or a speaker and a book author? Like, were you somebody that always wrote growing up?
I was not someone who always wrote. I am a big fan of entertainment and communication, but I didn't do a lot of writing. It was 2008. I was working in artist management. Like I mentioned, I managed a bunch of bands. And what I loved most about that was connecting with them and empowering them. A lot of people don't realize that musicians are actually entrepreneurs. They are, sometimes people just see them as artists, but really they are someone who's creating a product that they want to sell to the masses in exchange for a living, right? And so a lot of people don't treat musicians like entrepreneurs. And so I loved like showing them that they were entrepreneurs, that they could set big goals. They could step into the greatness. It was hard work, but we could set things that we could move forward, like treating them like entrepreneurs. I didn't necessarily like dealing with shady club owners. And I didn't like if I was working with a band and half the members didn't show up for practice on time, or, there's various different things that I didn't love about it. And then the fall of 2008, I heard, in fact, it was October 2008. So literally, 12 years ago, this month, I heard the term coaching, like life coach, come up like 3 times in the same month. And I was like, well, that sounds like what I am. That sounds like what I love. That's my who. How do I do that for a living, right? So in 2009, I ended up enrolling in a program called IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and I became a certified professional coach. And it just was a natural calling for me. I have no problem with, this is not being braggadocious, but we all know what our gifts are, what our skills are. And I was a natural coach. I'm a great coach. I love coaching. Next to parenthood, it is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. So I took to it very, very easily. And so, I love connecting with people because when you're coaching someone, you're not telling them what to do or how to do it necessarily, as much as you're helping them recognize that they have the answers within already, but they're blocked by fears, and they're blocked by limiting beliefs, and they're blocked by their past experiences. And so when we show them they have the ability to answer, we ask them questions that they wouldn't have asked themselves because of those fears and because of those blocks, then they start stepping out of their comfort zone. They start stepping out of where they've been to become more of who they deserve to be and who their true self is. So
Right.
I think I kind of took this in a different direction. But so once I started doing this on a regular basis, it was so fulfilling for me. I just never went back. And so I coach others, but I also do speaking. And so sometimes if I coach to the masses, it might be through public speaking. And then as someone who loves to create products, I wanted to create a book. I was like, okay, so, I am not the type of guy that's going to read 300 pages, right? There's a ton of books out there that will change your life, but I won't finish most of them. So I wanted something like, listen, man, if you're having a tough day, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not going to sit down and read 300 pages, right? So I wanted something that you're going to be able to just pick up, read through in 35 minutes, and walk away with instant, tangible changes. You can decide who you want to be in that moment, specific things that you can walk away with. And so kind of like a first aid kit. And so that's why I kind of made the book. And so it's called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. And it's a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life. And so as you can see, it's small. It's something that you can carry with you. You can put it in your back pocket. You can keep it in your glove compartment. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stress, it's actually made with 2 points. You could either read straight through it if you want, but then also it's also designed so you could open it to any page if you're feeling overwhelmed and find something that would serve you in that moment.
Right.
So that was my intention, to create something for the masses to where people, and of course, this year it's going over like gangbusters, right? Because I didn't write it for, I didn't know COVID was coming, but it really has served a lot of people. And so that's been a blessing to me as well.
I gotta really get me a copy of your book, man, because I'm always intrigued whenever, like your book says on being patient, being present, and also be joyful.
Yeah.
In my books, or people that write books like that, because that's really important, especially in today's society with everything that's going on. That really gives somebody a lot of motivation and encouragement. And I also love the logo you have on your book, the pressure, the Red Cross.
Yeah.
I admire that you put on there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm definitely going to send you. I'll get your information after we wrap up here, but I'll absolutely send you a copy tomorrow, and I'd love to get any feedback. But in the meantime, if you want to just test it out, pick a number between 1 and 69. I'll find a page for you. I'll find something on just to show how it works, and I'll find some first aid for someone else who's listening out there.
Well, let me see. Next year I'll be 30, so you can do 30. Love
it. By the way, that's a great year. 30 was a year that I really just started kicking things into gear. It's like this level of, I think it's where we really just start kind of a different level of maturity. It's like, okay, it's time to, some good things are coming for you, just so you know. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay. So here we go. Ready? Page 30. Right. There's one thing. It just says, look around, be present. Life is constantly given to you. There are so many stories going on in our heads that are not only untrue, but often serve to distract us from seeing the beauty of every moment of our existence. Life is everywhere, inviting you to make it whatever you want it to be. That's page 30. That's for you and anybody else.
I like that.
So that's an example, right? You're just like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, look around. Realize that right now is a gift. Realize that every single moment is a gift. Realize that I'm like, when I woke up this morning, there was sunlight, there was gravity, there was oxygen, just so that I could exist. What am I going to do with that, right? It is literally a gift. Every single moment that you are here is an opportunity for you to decide who you want to be and do something about it. And you're doing that with this podcast, right? You're stepping into your greatness every day. You're connecting with people. You're living your best life, and you're putting your gift out there to the world. And so I think once we start realizing that life is not to be wasted, too many people wait till they get a disease or wait till something terrible happens to them before they start stepping into the greatness. And so part of my message is like, it's okay to have a tough day, but what do you want to do with it? Who do you want to be because of it?
Right. And it's interesting you say that because, that's kind of like when you meet somebody that's like older and they always say they wish they could have did something, but when they was younger, but couldn't, or they want to do something, but they can't. And sometimes I'll ask them, well, what's stopping you from doing that? I mean, nothing in life beats a failure but a try. That's something my mother always tells me. And even if you don't succeed at it, or if you realize it's not for you, nothing beats a failure but a try. Even if, whatever you're passionate about, love, or whatever's on your mind or heart, you should try it regardless.
And to be honest with you, you've only failed if you've decided you have. right? Failure, if you're thinking that other people say, I'm failed based on other people's expectations, then that's you counting on someone else. But if you've decided I haven't failed yet, anything that happened to me, which may appear like a failure to somebody else, is really just an opportunity for growth for me, is a lesson, is a one more way I realize it is not going to work. How much information did I get out of that experience so that I can now make it work for me? There's really no such thing as failure unless you decide you failed. So
and that's a good way to put it, man.
Big props to your mom, by the way, for that's a great message.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I try to give her some motivation sometimes as well, because she's a nurse and she's been working all throughout this pandemic. She does home care. So yeah.
Maybe I'll send you 2 copies then. I'll send one for you, one for your mom.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Seriously.
You have a quote on your website I want to ask you about. Living on purpose doesn't happen by accident. That is an amazing quote, motivational quote, might I ask. How did you come up with that one? Well, how did that come about for you?
I know. You know what? I wish there was a cool story behind it. I just came out of my mouth one day. It was like literally, the more I thought about it, there's so many people who are like, oh, what does living on purpose even mean? And I was like, well, it doesn't happen by accident. Like, to live on purpose has to be an intention. Like you need to wake up every day and say that I want to live on purpose. So it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't just happen. Oh, I've accidentally lived on purpose. No, living on purpose is a decision. You can live on purpose and live with purpose, and they're actually 2 separate things, and often they can combine, right? My purpose is to live on purpose, meaning living intentionally, deciding every morning who I want to be and to do something about it, set goals that I'm striving for, be the best version of myself so that I can not only live the life that I deserve, but empower others to do the same. That's what living on purpose is. And it does take intention, because life can be stressful. It can feel overwhelming. It can be scary. It's definitely an adventure, right? And adventures are often scary. But and that is what keeps people down. That's what slows people up by fear and these different types of things. But we decide that I am made up of the same thing that the stars and the moon and life is, it's all atoms, right? It's all energy. And I'm made up of the exact same stuff. Therefore, I'm magnificent. I'm a child of God. Why would I waste that by being afraid of something bad that happened to me 2 weeks ago or a month ago or 7 years ago or whatever, when instead I can step into my greatness today and be this divine being, and live on purpose and create as often as possible.
Right. That also goes along with well, I don't know how big you were on The Lion King, but they had a quote in that movie saying you can't change the past. And somebody else had mentioned that worked at Disney as well, that would say he wasn't interested in what you did in the past or yesterday, because that was your past. Is what you can do today that can help change the world. And go on with what you said as well. But because hey, like I said, my podcast interviews to people. 10 years ago, I graduated from high school. 10 years later, we're in this COVID. Who knew this was going to happen? We've had viruses, we've had scares, but who knew that this was going to happen, where we're wearing masks and all these people dying and getting sick from all this happening, people losing their jobs and being scared? It's like, who knew that something like this was going to happen? And it's still happening.
Yeah. And if that's the case, man, it's just so a couple different things there. Great point. I love what you just said. First of all, the past, most of the time, our past, we don't even remember accurately, right? And so all of us who have these stories about what happened to us and why this was bad, and he said this, she said that, and this made me feel this way, and all these different things, a lot of it is not even accurate. Or actually, our memory is making it up to kind of feed the narrative of our feelings.
Right.
So it doesn't serve us. We have, when we have a thought, we're literally creating energy, right? There are brain waves that you can measure, like there's alpha waves, there's beta waves, there's theta waves, all these different, that literally when you have a thought, there's a brain wave that comes out. So therefore you are creating energy every time you have a thought. And so you could create that energy and focus on something that you're kind of remembering accurately, or that is, not good or not making you feel good. Or you could take that exact same amount of energy and spend that exact same amount of time creating gratitude for life itself, creating joy, creating intention for who you prefer to be, getting clear on what you want your life to look like and feel like every day, and how you're going to make that happen. And I think if more of us did that, I think there would be less fear. I think people are just spend too much time watching the news, too much time watching all this information that is just there to scare you, so that you behave in a way of being scared. But imagine if nobody was watching the news right now. If all the news channels turned off one day, And instead, the only information that was out there was stuff to serve us and make us feel better about ourselves. What would be different about the world? A lot, right? So that's A. So I just want to say, looking at the past doesn't necessarily serve us. It's okay to celebrate the past. It's important to celebrate the past, but to spend time focusing on it in a way that why my life is this way because of the past doesn't serve anybody. And it's usually not accurate. And then the second piece to that is, forget the second piece because you mentioned the past first. And then what'd you say after that?
Oh, and then I was talking about how the world is today, because I was saying that 10 years ago I graduated from high school, and then 10 years later we got this COVID going on, and people being scared and losing their jobs, and people dying and catching it. We're all wearing face masks now. I mean, who knew that would happen? And it's still going on today. And this is also a time for people to really think about their lives and really focus on positivity and a straight and arrow, and really try to reinvert their lives, and knowing that, like what you said, living your life didn't happen by accident. God put us all here for a purpose. We all was born with a gift.
Totally. So yeah, and that's the second piece. So we don't know what's coming 10 years from now. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. That's a quote from a couple different people, but I think one of them in particular is a guy named Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I'm a huge fan of. I've read a number of his books. He's a big influence on my life. So check him out on YouTube, everybody out there, if you're curious. Dr. Joe Dispenza. But he says the best way to predict the future is to create it, meaning we don't know what's going to happen in the outside world. We don't know if there's a pandemic is coming, all these different things, right? There's no way you can predict that. So instead of trying to predict what you is going to happen based on this other information, create the future that you want as often as possible. Spend your life, spend your days, spend your time thinking about who you want to be and being grateful for that outcome already. When you start thinking about what you want to be and are creating gratitude for it, you actually put a process in place that'll start to occur and start to unfold right before you.
Absolutely. I gotta tell you, man, I don't know how many times you've done like motivational speaking, but you gotta keep doing it, man. Because all throughout this podcast, you give impossible notes, positive energy, man. You bringing it, man.
Listen, that's my job. Meaning that's what I'm here for. I've decided, that I know what my purpose is. I am living on purpose. My purpose is to be the light that I want to see in the world, and empower others to do the same. And going back to something, and thank you, by the way. Let me dial it back and share some gratitude. So thank you for saying that. I mean, because that is my intention, and so it's a blessing to feel my intention reflected in your words. And so thank you for acknowledging it and recognizing it, because that is who I plan to be, right, every day. And so, and everybody else has the opportunity to do that as well, right? I mean, we have the choice to decide who we want to be. We could again spend time thinking about what's not good, or we could spend thinking about time of who we want to be and take action towards it.
What is that feeling like for you when, 'cause I know you've helped coach people. I mean, what is that feeling like for you when you coach somebody and something positive or good comes from that? I mean, they thank you for it, or tell you about what happened since that happens.
Yeah, I just got chills when you were asking the question. In the sense that I've had so many conversations where we're both crying in a good way, not like sobbing, but like there's it's like you get teared up because we're touching on emotion. And we're speaking to people's true soul of and helping them be aware of who they have the power to be. So when you say, what is that like for me? Like I said, next to parenthood, it's literally the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And the truth is, it's not because I'm not necessarily showing people. I mean, there's aspects of what I do that shows people who they have the potential to be. But really, it's them being willing to see who they actually are inside and being willing to accept that they can live that life. I have a client who recently told me I was working with her, and she said she had just bought her first home, just got married recently, and she was outside clipping some pruning. She didn't even know what pruning was. She goes, Ryan, I heard of this thing. It's called pruning, and apparently you clip the dead leaves off of these trees that are around my house. I didn't know about it, and because I was out there doing this for the first time, and you clip the dead leaves so that new ones can grow underneath. And these dead leaves were there at one point in part of our younger years, and it was something that grew. And she said, I realized that's a lot of the work that I'm doing with Ryan. Like I'm clipping. It's not that he's not growing new leaves inside of me, but as much as he's helping me remove the old ones that are not serving me anymore, that are dead and are actually draining from my inner, so that new ones can grow on their own, and that they can see the light and feel the light and receive the water and all the things that we need to grow and survive and thrive.
Right.
And so when I hear things like that, it's a blessing in my life, and I know that I'm here for a reason.
Absolutely. We, like I said earlier, we're all here for a purpose. I mean, God, when God created us, He gave each one of us a talent, and eventually, it gets to a point where I feel like we all should take the time to try and explore that feeling and figure it out. There's a feeling deep down in us that He gave all of us, and sometimes people miss that. They may not catch it, but then there's times when we do catch it, and when we catch it, we gotta explore it and see where it goes. Because your positiveness could change somebody else's life who might be having a bad day or don't know what to do with themselves.
100%, man. And that absolutely. That's why I say be the light you want to see in the world, because it will affect others, and they will then begin to. When you are that way, it is contagious, and people want to be around it more, and they want to see it more, and then they want to be it. And then when they be it, then other people want to be around them. And it is, there's so much hate and anger out there, and for us to be the opposite takes strength, and it takes intention, and it takes purpose, and it's necessary. Now is the time for the helpers to rise. If ever there's been a time, it is now. For if you, whatever your gift is, I'm kind of shifting gears from the helpers piece, because I think that in itself is a statement. Right now is the time for the helpers to rise. So people should know that. If you feel like that's your calling, do something about it. But going back to your point earlier about just gifts in general, whatever your gift is, you can actually be a helper by stepping into your gift. Be the best version of yourself. We all know what our gifts are. Sometimes we don't want to admit it out loud, or that there's a bit of humility and want to be humble or whatever. But you know what you're good at. You know what you like doing. You know what aligns, like when you're in the flow, right? We all have these little things, whatever they are. Like, step into that. If you're hearing this right now, know that is a gift for you. And by not stepping into that, you're actually doing that gift a disservice. And you're actually doing God a disservice, because He gave it to you for a reason. And so you're disregarding the gift, and you're disregarding Him. And so there's an opportunity for you it's there for a reason. Acknowledge it, step into it, be grateful for it, try it out, share it with others as often as possible, and see how it inspires others to do the same.
Right. Absolutely. So, Ryan, I got to ask you, man, with the success of your first book, is there plans for more books to come out in the future?
There are actually. I haven't put any words on paper, but I have two concepts that I'm working on. Is the short answer. I don't know if you want me to get into some of the details. I'd be happy to. But yeah, there's two other books I have. Well, so the first one it's a little bit heady, right? In the sense, I have a title, and the title is Mind the Gap, and there's a longer explanation. So I don't know if you've ever been to London, but when you get on the trains in London, the subways in London, instead of trains or subways, they call them, actually it doesn't matter what they call, but there's a gap between when you step onto the train and you're on the platform. And so There's like a note that goes off. It just says, it goes ding, and it's like, mind the gap, because they don't want you to fall into the gap. So I've taken that and said, mind the gap. And the gap is GACC. And it stands for the Great and Constant Conversation. And the Great and Constant Conversation is the great and constant conversation with life. It's like if you think about something or someone, and all of a sudden you get a text from them. If you see the same number showing up over and over again, like all these little coincidences that show up in your life, that to me is the Great and Constant Conversation. And I want to write a book that it's not a one-way conversation; it's a two-way conversation. So when you recognize something like that happening, or you're thinking about something or someone in particular, and then a coincidence shows up, and all of a sudden that shows up in your life, like that is, in my opinion, in my experience, that is life speaking to me. That is literal, the atoms manifesting, like moving energy around to matter, responding to me through life, right? So the universe is coming back to me. And so that's not just a one-way thing. So then I get to create gratitude for that experience. I create this energy, this love of gratitude. Thank you, life, for responding to my thoughts by showing me something that I thought of. Thank you so much for showing me that you're here and that I'm alive and that I have a purpose and that this is a conversation. And then once I show gratitude for it, all of a sudden, guess what? Then it's life's turn to respond again. And so now it gives me more of it. It gives me more things to be grateful for. It'll show me that same thing again in a different format, or something else the next day that I had also thought about. And each time that happens and I create gratitude for it, I acknowledge it, it becomes this constant conversation. And so anytime when I see these different instances, I keep putting them in air quotes because they actually are. They are things coinciding, right? So technically, I don't say there's no such thing as coincidence. It's just not an accident, I guess. So when I see these coincidences, there's just more and more happens, and the more you start to follow that as not a sign, but a conversation and a way to communicate with life and to be part of the conversation, and it's pretty powerful.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a little too deep, but like that's the next book. And then there's
That's
a
fine.
third one, which is based on the difference between judgment and curiosity and how they are two sides of the same coin. And when we start judging things, we put them in a box and we put a label on them and we keep them small in our own mind, and it's only based on our perception. As opposed to,
Right.
we can recognize something is different, and instead of judging it as good or bad, we can create curiosity as just to why it is the way it is and learn more about it. And when we do that, especially we do that with ourselves and with others, right? So often we are judging ourselves. I'm not good enough. I should be farther along in my career. I should be in a better relationship. I should weigh less. I should, who knows, all these different things that we tell ourselves. I always say to people, stop shooting on yourself. So that's all judgment, right? I'm judging myself for not being good enough, not being skinny enough, not having the right job, not being in a relationship. So just for any of your listeners out there, for a basic switch on that, you can shift that from judgment to curiosity just by shifting the word should to could. So, I should be further along in my career right now. I mean, you just feel the energy in that. Like I should be. It's like, well, I guess I'm not good enough. I should be further along. As opposed to, I could be further along in my career right now. Awesome. So what do I do about it? Right? It puts responsibility in your hands and it gives you opportunity, because if I should be, that just means that's it. I'm not good enough and I should be further along. But I could be means cool. So it's not in a box. It's not bad. It means I could be. So what's next? There's a lot of opportunity, and anytime, and so that's with ourselves. And that was a very basic version. Like I said, it's a book, so it could be an hour or two long conversation. But with others, when we see people and we start judging them, if I'm raised in New Jersey out here, in Western New Jersey, and I'm growing up in my family or in this town that with a culture that's similar to mine, and with people that are similar to me, you tend to start believing that that's the way everything should be. Right. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you go to a place where, let's just say that I go to Newark Airport and I see people from all over the world in all walks of life and all different types of religions and all different types of races and all these different things and all different type of cultures. And I might just naturally, whether I like it or know it or not, start judging them as good or bad based on how I was raised, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because had I been raised and born to their parents and lived every single second of their life up until that moment, I would be behaving the exact same way that they are, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to judge them at all. Now, I can instead be curious as to, wow, like to that point, if I was born to their parents and lived every single second of their life, how would my life be different? What would I be doing differently? And then you reach a different level of empathy and understanding, and you've moved yourself from judgment to putting somebody in a box to open-mindedness and understanding and empathy and connection and recognizing that we are all one anyway. And when you start to do that, then you really start to be curious and want to connect with others. And then they want to connect with you. And you empower others to really have more of an open communication, dialogue, connection. And that's, again, what we're all here for.
You know what? Forget being a speaker, man. You got to be a pastor, man, because you preaching the word today.
It's just the truth.
You're right, man. You're right. Everything today is right.
It's easy to speak when you're not hiding anything.
Right. So you mentioned it earlier, and I've heard about it too. You helped manage some bands. How did that come about for you?
You know what? That is a great question. I came about, and this is a great example of just pursuing your dreams and being open to opportunity. So I mentioned earlier when we first started talking that I'm a huge fan of this band Fish, right? And and I'm like I'm a super nerd when it comes to Fish. Like, we all things that we nerd out about. Like there's two things for me. One is like personal development and self-growth, and I think the other one is Fish. So like I said, I've seen them in concert over 100 times. So I actually, when I was younger, I wanted to get into filmmaking. And this is right when I was 29. This is 29, going on 30, as you mentioned, about to be 30. This is when I thought when all this happened. So that's why I was part of it. I said, like, this was a big time for me. Right. And so I never went to film school, and I didn't really know anybody in the film industry or anything like that. And so I just said, well, if I want to get into filmmaking, I guess I better have a film to make. And so I wrote a screenplay. And so I sat down and I wrote this screenplay, which I guess goes against you. I do a lot of writing when I was younger. That's the only things I wrote. I swear I only wrote 2 things. One was a screenplay, one was this book. So I decided to write this screenplay, and I made this. It's like a buddy stoner comedy about these 2 dudes, but it's kind of based in the Phish community. And the Phish it's like a kind of like a super hippie band. I mean, it's not only that, but there's a lot of hippies that follow this band. It's probably a very broad brush statement to say. There's a lot of very intelligent people that follow it, and people with regular. But anyway, it's kind of written for the hippie. Like the screenplay itself is about that. And so I wrote this screenplay, and I had connected with this guy named Tom Marshall, and Tom Marshall is the lyricist for Phish. So he writes a lot of their lyrics for a lot of their songs, and then the music he writes them. He's a co-writer with the main songwriter for the band. And I had connected with him on MySpace. I don't know if you remember MySpace. If you're old enough to actually ever gotten on MySpace. But so 10 years ago, when you were graduating high school, I was hanging out on MySpace, and that's where I met Tom Marshall. We ended up connecting as friends there before Facebook and all that. And it turns out that he was recording in a studio that was like 20 minutes from my house. And so I was like, Tom, listen, I wrote the screenplay. I'd love you to read it. Maybe we get together. Let's see if we can make a movie. I thought that, you're going to like it. It has to do with Phish and the whole thing. And so I went to connect with him at the studio. We ended up hanging out and talking. And in make this long story not so long, he wasn't into making films. It wasn't his thing, and it wasn't something that the band was interested in doing, or he didn't matter. It wasn't able to get done. But when I went there, I went to the studio, and I had some business background, and I started talking to them, and he was in this other band called Amphibian. So Phish is the one band, spelled Phish, and now Amphibian is spelled Amfibin, so spelled differently as well. And so they didn't have a manager, and I said, listen, I have some business background. How about I'll be your manager? And so I started managing his band. And he was in a studio, and the guitarist for his band owned the studio, and he had people that would come in and out and record stuff there all the time. And so I got some office space right next door to the studio, and so I started picking up other bands that were coming through. I was looking for opportunity. So I started looking for other bands that were coming, and then I started managing them as well. But had I not, and then by the way, because I got into band management, then I got into coaching, right? And then coaching got me to really just share my message with the world. And so it's a 10-year journey plus 12-year journey. But had I not written that screenplay, had I not pursued my passion for this band and kind of to make something fun, I wouldn't have gone to that, I wouldn't have met one of my heroes because he wrote a lot of my favorite songs. I wouldn't have done all these different things. And so just another message, pursue your dreams, do something about it because you never know where it's going to lead.
So when you were managing the band, is that a process when you try to shape up the band in terms of finding the right song, the way they looked on stage and where they was going to tour and the finances and stuff?
Yep, all the above. And it also just depends on the band itself, right? So some bands are going to have different needs, and sometimes it's about keeping people organized. Sometimes it's about getting a business plan together. Sometimes it's about being a coach. Sometimes it's about just organizing their future. Sometimes it is about how do they want to look. But yeah, it's about asking them questions and helping them be the best versions of themselves.
Right. Okay. Did you ever sing in your life? I mean, you got plans to release an album?
I have no plans to release an album anytime soon. I did sing when I was in high school. I was in a band for a very short amount of time. Actually, it's a little bit of a funny story. The name of the band was Your Mom. And the reason that was not to be it was more to be funny than it was to be offensive, in the sense that people could say, hey, I saw Your Mom last night. It was amazing. I got Your Mom's new album. It's off the hook. Oh my gosh, I heard Your Mom on the radio last night. It was so good. Like, I'm getting tickets to go see Your Mom next week. It was kind of this funny thing. So again, being 16, it was very funny. So yeah, so we did some singing. We did some cover bands, some cover songs. It was a good time.
I was gonna say, man, the ideas that was going through my head when you said it was called Your Mama. So approaching some random dude talking about, hey, I saw Your Mama last night at the concert. I'm buying Your Mama's album right now. It's like, what'd you say about my mama, man?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Learning lessons.
Yeah, man.
Maybe that's why it
So
was so
Ron,
short-lived.
yeah, I mean, I just, I don't know. I don't know what to make about that one. I mean,
Well, now
people
listen.
they.
Now, for for the sake of conversation, let's just say that your mom was a famous musician, right? And if somebody
Right,
said that to you, that is a compliment.
right,
So when you said that and somebody says, "Hey, I saw your mama last night at a thing," based on your experience and maybe other conversations you've had, this is a great way to just think about how we interpret things and interpretation and perspective. And so all of a sudden, you or anybody else, somebody might take that the wrong way, and somebody else might be like, "Oh my gosh, like that would be a great thing." Like, anyway. So I'm just saying it's all about perspective. And when we start caring what someone else thinks, and all of a sudden let that energy, like, "What'd you say about my mom?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't think about your mom. I was talking about a band." Right? So it's like you can diffuse. It's all about our energy and how we choose to perceive things. Instead, so
right,
great. I'll take it. I'll take it all back and say, so you being you in this situation, you judged me, right, for saying that, talking about your mom, as opposed, we're switching judgment to curiosity. So this is a great example, as opposed
right,
to. So and by the way, you and everybody else, there's a natural way to be. It wasn't, but I'm saying just for the stuff that we've been talking about. So if someone might be like, "Oh, I'm judging you all of a sudden for having a band. What'd you say about my mom?" As opposed to being genuinely curious, like, "Oh, I'm not even sure what that means. My mom wasn't at a stage last night. Why did you say that? Like, what does that mean? Like curiosity. Oh, I'm in a
right,
band, right? Oh, it's a band. It's called. Oh, I understand now. And now there's no energy around it. There's just curiosity. There's curiosity. There's connection, and then you can have a deeper conversation about it.
right. Okay. Is any of that material on YouTube? Your band?
No, definitely not. I think we had one gig. We just practiced a lot in a buddy's basement, and I think we had one gig at like a high school thing.
Okay. So Ryan, I gotta ask you, man. What can the fans and anybody expect from you? Anything new while it's going into 2021?
First of all, so thank you for asking. I appreciate the opportunity. So right now, I'm spending a lot of time getting the message about my book out there. So the more people that can purchase it, the more it makes. Especially as the holidays are coming, it makes a great gift, especially in a year like this, to give to others and help them with their stress and overwhelm. So I have about 5 projects that I'm working on right now. One of them is this book. I have a company called Teach Me to Sell, and it is
Mm,
right now we're focusing a lot of time on YouTube. So if you search Teach Me to Sell on YouTube, I'm the headmaster of mindset for that company. So we teach people who are new to sales all about it. And so there's 40 free videos just on mindset and actually sales skills. So we're going to be developing that over the year.
right,
I have a T-shirt company called Setlist T, and it's for fans of live music. And so if you've been to a concert, it was your favorite concert, and you want to remember it, instead of a ticket stub, which you probably also want to have, is a T-shirt, and it'll have the date from your favorite concert on the front, and then the set list, whatever songs they played that night, on the back. And
right.
so I'm going to be developing that a lot. So that's Setlist tees, and then I don't know. I'm working on a smartphone app with a couple other guys, and any speaking. I don't know. We'll see what else. We'll see what the coming months bring.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I look forward to see anything new that's going to come your way. I'm going to definitely check it out because, like I said earlier, whenever I have somebody from Maryland, where I'm at on here, I'm always thrilled to hear about their plans, their goals, and especially when they talk about their projects and how they got from point A to point B. And like I said, all throughout this podcast, Ryan, you really hit point. You gave a lot of key points, motivation,
Yeah.
and it's been a real blast having you on today.
Listen, man, I'm blessed to be here. I appreciate your awesomeness. I appreciate the invite. I'd be happy to come back. I will say, if I could, real quick, if anybody's interested in purchasing my book, you can check it out on Amazon. So again, it's called "Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful," and you can see it on Amazon. There's something else I was going to say to you about that, but I don't remember what it was. So, I was going to say, listen, if anybody's interested in this book and they're not in a space where they have extra cash to spend right now because it's been such a weird year, you can also go to ryanstanley.com/free dash ebook, and you can download a free PDF of the book as well.
Okay. I'm going to share this because I have my page on Facebook as well. On my each time I upload my podcast, so I'm going to share this as well. So if anybody interested, they can hook themselves up. And I encouragely motivate people to please come out and check out this man's book here, just like I'm going to. Because I can't wait to check it out.
Thank you very much. And the last thing I'll mention is, by the way, I was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, so I'm actually from not too far from you.
Okay, my aunt lives out in Silver Springs right now. Her and my grandmother, my mom's mom, they live out there right now.
What'd you say about my mom? What? I was thinking it.
Bro, you need your own show, man. Come on, man.
No, we're working on it. Baby step, baby step.
Yeah, man. And before I let you go, I wanted to ask you real quick. I've had some people in the past this because in December it'll be like a year since I've been doing my podcast. What do you look for? And by the way, I will reach out to you and have you come back as well, especially when I get my book. I'm working on a book as well.
Perfect.
What is it that you love about Christmas? Like, what do you look forward to in Christmas time? I mean, I know the COVID didn't happen this year, but what's something that you love about Christmas time?
So much is going on with COVID. You know what? That's a great question. I love family. I love the winter in general. Actually, I don't love the winter all the time. I just love the change of season. So I look forward to the change of season. And actually, what I love most about Christmas, in some capacity, not Christmas, but the Christmas season, is, as of December 21st, the winter solstice, it's starting to get a little bit lighter. So every single day after December 21st, it gets a little bit lighter, moving up to the summer. And so that's also like a time of year that I think it's a nice time to celebrate the dawn of a new year, and just, love and compassion with family and friends and gift giving and all that stuff. Like I love just connecting with people.
Okay. Yeah, Christmas time is I've always considered Christmas time as a great, powerful, interesting time of the year, and not just because I love It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street and Christmas songs, but I've always loved Christmas, and I always get encouraged whenever I hear somebody talk about what they love about Christmas as well.
Well, and I'll add to that as I'm thinking about it. And it was a great question because I wasn't expecting it. Being a dad now, I would say that, you meaning me, some of the things like getting a Christmas tree or, hanging up the lights and that type of thing I didn't even realize it, but had become monotonous to me and just kind of something you're supposed to do. Right. And then now that I have kids, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, like to see the excitement in their eyes light up when you get to go do that stuff. And like to go get the tree and put it up and to put up the lights and to be a part of that. And so that in itself, also sharing that experience with them and seeing it through their eyes is probably what I like most about Christmas, right? In this stage of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a compliment in there because I saw that in your eyes when we were just speaking. And that's what reminded me of that. So thank you.
No problem. And I was going to ask a question, but I don't think your kids are old enough to know what Toys R Us was. I was going to say, do they ever go crazy in Toys R Us in the toys department or movie department?
No, definitely. Yes. And they were, in fact, Toys R Us is so big, right? They're closed down now, but I've certainly spent many times going crazy in the toy department. And that's when I let them just kind of do their thing.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, I got to tell you, man, it's been a blast having you on my podcast. I'm going to definitely have you come back. I always enjoy having my guests from the past come back. And, I'm looking forward to checking out your book as well. I'm going to send you my information once I sign us off here. But I've had a blast talking to you today. And God bless you and your family. And keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Yeah, man. Reflect it all right back to you. I look forward to connecting again. Thanks for being you.
Thank you, man. You have a good one.
Bye.
See ya. Okay, he's off. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Devin Cheese, I don't know if you're still watching this, but thanks for watching, brother. I'll get in touch with you soon. But thanks again for tuning in for another episode with PE Slick Podcast. Please stay tuned for more episodes to come. And please stay tuned because there's something big coming soon that I'm going to be involved in. So stay tuned with that. I'm going to announce it on both this channel and my other channel, Soaps Past. And join me next week when I have Donnie Jeffcoat played Joey Buchanan on One Life to Live from 98 to 2001. And I'm having a man named Mr. Tyler, who is a book author and a speaker, and he's a teacher as well. I having both of them coming on Monday. No, next Monday, next week, the 9th. So stay tuned, get ready, and continue being motivated. God bless y'all. Have a good one. Bye bye.